The alarm screamed through the station like a dying animal. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Then everything went quiet and dark. Dropped her repair tools and grabbed the wall. The floor shook once, twice, then stopped. Emergency lights came on, painting everything in a sick orange color. "Lockdown in Section 7B, said the station voice. "All doors sealed. Do not panic." Was very much panicking. She was supposed to be fixing a broken air filter. A simple job. 20 minutes of work, then back to her room for dinner. But now the heavy metal doors had slammed shut at both ends of the hallway, and she was trapped. Her radio crackled, "Are you there?" She recognized the voice. He worked for the human diplomat team. She had seen him in the cafeteria sometimes, always reading something on his, always smiling politely at everyone. "I'm here," she said into her radio. "Where are you?" "Same section. I was delivering documents to the ambassador." His voice was calm but could hear something underneath, fear. "The doors closed before I could leave." Looked around. She was in a maintenance corridor. Pipes and wires covered the walls. "Can you get to me?" "I think so, but there's a problem." "What problem?" A pause, then, "The ambassador's cubs, they're trapped in here with us. She's on the other side of the door." Felt her stomach drop. She knew about everyone on the station knew about them. They were huge. They looked like cats, but cats the size of bears. They had claws that could cut through metal. They had fangs as long as human fingers. And they were one of the most dangerous warrior species in 12-star systems. "Cubs," repeated. "How many?" "6. 6 baby predators. Wonderful." "Where are they now?" "In the ambassador's private room. I can hear them. I can hear them crying." And then heard it too. Through the floor vents came a sound that made her blood cold. Tiny roars. Not angry roars, sad roars, scared roars. The cubs were calling for their mother, and their mother could not come. The radio crackled again. A different voice this time, deep and rough, speaking the common tongue with a heavy accent. "Human, this is Ambassador, can you hear me?" Press the button. "Yes, Ambassador, I hear you." "Listen to me carefully." The ambassador's voice was shaking, had never heard a sound afraid before. "My cubs are in that section. They are young, they are scared, and when cubs are scared they become dangerous." "What do you want us to do?" "Hide, find a room with a strong door and hide inside. Do not approach them, do not look at them, do not make sounds, they will see you as prey. Their instincts will take over." The ambassador's voice cracked. "Please, I cannot lose my cubs, but I cannot lose you either. The guilt would destroy my clan." His voice came through. "How long until the doors open?" "The repair team says 18 hours, maybe more." 18 hours. Trapped with 6 predator cubs who might try to eat them. Looked at the floor vent near her feet. The tiny roars were getting louder, more desperate. She could hear scratching sounds too, claws on metal. "Ambassador," she said, "when did the cubs eat last?" A pause. 6 hours ago." "And how often do they need to eat?" "Every 4 hours. Their bodies burn energy fast." Another pause. "By now they are hungry. In 2 more hours they will be very hungry. Hungry cubs are unpredictable." Closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother back on Earth. Her grandmother had raised 7 children and 13. She always said the same thing. A scared child is just a child who needs love. A hungry child is just a child who needs food. There is no monster that kindness cannot tame. Her grandmother had never met an alien predator cub, but still. Said into her radio, "Can you find me?" "I think so. Follow the main corridor east." "I'm coming to you, and then we're going to the cubs." The ambassador's voice exploded through the radio. "No, human, you must not. They will kill you." But was already walking. She found 10 minutes later. He was a tall man with kind eyes and nervous hands. He was holding his like a shield. "You're serious about this," he said. It was not a question. "They're bobbies," said. "Scared, hungry bobbies. I'm not going to hide in a closet while bobbies cry." Looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I studied language and culture for 3 years. I know some things that might help." "Good, then let's go." They walked through the empty corridors. The emergency lights made shadows jump on the walls. The crying from the vents grew louder with each step. The ambassador's quarters had a big golden door with claw marks on it. Decorative, hoped. She pressed her hand to the panel and it slid open. The room inside was large and warm. Soft cushions covered the floor. Strange plants grew in pots by the window. And in the corner, pressed together in a shaking pile of fur and fear, were 6 cubs. They were smaller than expected. The biggest was maybe the size of a large dog. The smallest could fit in her arms. They had golden eyes that glowed in the dim light. They had soft fur in different shades of brown and orange. They had tiny claws and tiny fangs. And they were terrified. When the door opened, all 6 heads turned. 12 golden eyes fixed on, and the crying stopped. For one long, terrible moment, nothing moved. Then the smallest cub opened its mouth and roared. It was barely louder than a kitten's meow. And something in its heart melted completely. "Hello, little ones," she said softly. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but I'm going to help you, okay? I'm going to take care of you until your mother comes back." The cubs stared at her. They did not attack. They did not run. They just watched, with huge golden eyes full of tears. Took one step forward, then another, grabbed her arm, but she gently pulled free. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's going to be okay." And somewhere deep in the station, behind a locked metal door, Ambassador listened through the radio and prayed to every god she knew, walked slowly toward the cubs, very slowly. She kept her hands open and visible. She kept her voice soft and low. She had no idea if this would work. She only knew that running away was not an option. The cubs watched her with those big golden eyes. Their tiny bodies were pressed so close together that they looked like one big ball of fur. The smallest one had stopped roaring. Now it just whimpered quietly. Whispered from the door, "Their claws have venom if they scratch you." "Then I get scratched," said without turning around. "Stay there, keep talking to the ambassador, tell her what's happening." She heard speak into his radio. She heard the ambassador's voice, tight with fear, asking questions, but focused only on the cubs. She was 3 steps away now, close enough to see their whiskers trembling, close enough to see the wet streaks of tears on their furry faces, close enough to smell them, a strange mix of honey and fresh grass. One of the cubs, slightly bigger than the others, pushed forward. It had darker fur than its siblings, almost red in color. It opened its mouth and hissed at. The hiss was meant to be scary, but the cub's whole body was shaking. "I know," said gently. "I know you're trying to protect your family. You're very brave, but I'm not here to hurt anyone, I promise." The red cub stared at her. Its golden eyes were suspicious. Could see it making a decision. She waited. The cub stepped back. Not an attack, not a welcome, just a waiting. Took one more step. Now she could see behind the pile of cubs, and what she saw made her heart hurt. The smallest cub was not with the others. It was stuck. Somehow it had crawled behind a large heating unit attached to the wall, and now it could not get out. It was crying quietly, its tiny paws scratching uselessly at the metal. "Oh no," breathed, "oh little one." She looked at the other cubs. They looked back at her. She pointed at the stuck cub. "I need to help your sibling. Will you let me?" The cubs did not understand her words, but something in her tone, something in her face, must have reached them. The red cub made a low sound in its throat. The others parted slightly, making a path. Got down on her knees and crawled to the heating unit. The stuck cub saw her coming and panicked. It scratched wildly, trying to escape. One claw caught its arm. The pain was immediate and sharp. She felt the venom burn under her skin like fire. Her arm went numb from the elbow down. She did not scream. She did not pull away. "It's okay," she said through gritted teeth. "It's okay, baby, I've got you." With her good hand, she reached behind the unit. She found the cub's small body, warm and soft and trembling. Gently, carefully, she pulled. The cub came free with a pop, held it against her chest. It was so light, so small. Its heart was beating fast like a tiny drum. For a moment it struggled, then it felt her warmth. It felt her calm, and slowly, very slowly, it relaxed. A deep purring sound filled the room. It came from the cub in her arms. Almost laughed. Warriors were feared across the galaxy. Their battle roars could shake buildings, but their bobbies purred just like Earth cats. The other cubs crept closer. They sniffed its clothes, her hair, her injured arm. The red cub looked at the scratch on her skin. It looked at the cub in her arms. Something changed in its golden eyes. It touched its nose to its wound. Then it made a soft sound, almost like an apology. "It's okay," said again. "It was an accident. I forgive you, little one." Its voice came from behind her. "The ambassador is crying. She says she can hear the purring through the radio. She says that sound means acceptance. The cubs have accepted you." Looked at the 5 cubs now sitting around her. The smallest one was still in her arms, still purring. The others were close enough to touch. "What are their names?" she asked. Translated the question. The ambassador answered through tears. "The one in your arms he is the youngest, always curious, always getting stuck in places. The red one she is the oldest, the leader. The gray one is Bora, she is the protector. The 2 brown ones are Dari, and they are twins. And the orange one, the shy one hiding behind, is Saul." Looked at each cub as the ambassador named them. "Hello, hello, hello, Bora, Dari, Saul. My name we're going to take care of you." The cubs did not understand the words, but they understood the feeling. This strange creature with no claws and no fur was not afraid of them. This creature was gentle. This creature was warm. Maybe this creature could be trusted. Came closer now, moving slowly like Had. He sat down on the floor near the group. Saul, the shy orange cub, looked at him with wide eyes. "The ambassador says they need to eat," said. "There should be food in the cold storage. Small cubes of meat. We need to feed them every 4 hours or they get aggressive." Nodded. "Can you find the food? I'll stay with them." Hesitated. Leaving alone with 6 predator cubs felt wrong, but the cubs were calm now, and someone needed to get the food. He stood and walked to the storage area. Behind him, he heard talking softly to the cubs, telling them about Earth, about her grandmother, about the stars outside the window. When he came back with the meat cubes, he found something that made him stop in his tracks. Was lying on the soft cushions. Around her, pressed close to her body, were all 6 cubs. Was on her chest, still purring. Was at her side, watching the door like a guard. The others were curled against her legs and arms. They looked like a family. Sat down quietly and began to hand out the meat cubes. The cubs ate eagerly, their small teeth making quick work of the food. When they finished, they returned to their positions around. "The ambassador wants to know how you did this," said. "Cubs don't trust strangers, ever. It takes months for them to accept new people." Smiled tiredly. The venom in her arm was making her sleepy. "I didn't do anything special. I just treated them like bobbies, because that's what they are." On the other side of the door, Ambassador listened to her cubs purring through the radio. She had sent warriors into battle. She had faced death many times, but she had never felt fear like she felt when those doors closed. Now, listening to her children calm and safe with humans, she felt something else, something she did not have a word for. Gratitude perhaps, or wonder. Or the beginning of something that would change her people forever. 8 hours had passed since the lockdown began. The cubs were no longer scared. Now they were bored, and bored cubs, quickly learned, were almost as dangerous as scared ones. It started with Dari and the twins. They began to wrestle on the cushions, rolling over each other, biting and scratching. Their play looked violent too, but she could hear them making happy sounds. This was normal for them. Then Dari got too excited. He jumped at with all his strength, dodged, and Dari crashed directly into. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. Dari's claws caught her shoulder, tearing through her thin uniform. Blood welled up from 3 long scratches. Dari froze. He looked at the blood. He looked at its face twisted in pain, and he began to cry. Not a roar, a real cry, high and sad and full of guilt. The other cubs gathered around. They sniffed its wound. They made low, worried sounds. The oldest pushed Dari away and licked the blood from his shoulder. It stung but did not move. "It's okay," she said, even though it really hurt. It was an accident. But was watching with serious eyes. "This is going to keep happening," he said. "They play rough. It's their nature. We need to teach them to be careful with us." How do we teach predator cubs to be gentle? Thought for a moment, then he sat up straight. The same way anyone teaches children anything, with rules, simple rules they can understand and remember. He pulled out his and opened a translation program. For the next hour he worked on something. The cubs watched him with curious eyes. Saul, the shy one, crept closer and closer until he was sitting right next to, staring at the glowing screen. Finally looked up. "I think I have something. The ambassador has been helping me through the radio. She says cubs learn best through repetition and rhyme. I've made a list of rules translated into simple sounds." He showed the 2. On the screen were 6 rules, each one written in both human words and strange symbols. "Read them to me," said. Cleared his throat. Rule 1, no claws on the soft ones. Humans do not have fur to protect them. Simple, good. Rule 2, gentle mouths only. Human skin is thin like flower petals. Touched her scratched shoulder, very true. Rule 3, small pounces. Humans fall down and do not get back up if you pounce too hard. Also very true. Rule 4, share the warm human. There are only 2 of them, take turns. Laughed at this one. The cubs did seem to fight over who got to sit closest to her. Rule 5, if the human says ow, stop immediately. This is the most important rule. Yes, that's a good one. And Rule 6, paused, his voice became softer. Rule 6, protect the humans from danger. They protected us. We protect them back. Felt tears in her eyes. That's beautiful. The ambassador added that one. She says it's the foundation of honor. When someone protects you, you owe them protection in return. Now came the hard part. Teaching the rules to 6 young cubs who did not speak human language and had the attention span of puppies. Started with the oldest. He spoke the first rule in careful sounds. Nari, na, no claws on the soft ones. Tilted her head. Her ears moved forward. She understood the words, but did she understand the meaning? Held out her arm, showing the scratches. Then she touched paw, pointing at the claws. She shook her head. Then she touched her own skin and made a sad face. Looked at the scratches. She looked at her own claws. Something clicked in her golden eyes. Very carefully she reached out and touched his arm with the soft pad of her paw. No claws, just gentle touch. "Yes," said happily. "Good girl, that's right." Purred proudly, and then something amazing happened. She turned to her siblings and repeated the sounds had made. Nari, na. She was teaching them. One by one the cubs practiced. They touched and with soft paws. They pressed their mouths closed when they got close to human skin. They learned to pounce gently, landing with soft feet instead of hard ones. When Dari accidentally bumped too hard, made a sharp sound at him. A correction. A reminder. Dari hung his head and tried again, more carefully this time. "The ambassador is amazed," said, listening to his radio. "She says cubs teaching cubs is the strongest kind of learning. These rules will stay with them for life." By hour 10, the cubs had turned the rules into a kind of game. They tested each other. They practiced. When one of them forgot and got too rough, the others would remind them with soft sounds and gentle pushes. And then something unexpected happened. Bora, the gray cub who had appointed herself as protector, heard a noise from the ventilation system. A clang of metal, probably just the station systems working. But Bora did not know that. She knew only that there was a strange sound, and her humans might be in danger. She moved in front of it, her small body tense. She growled at the vent, showing her tiny fangs. The other cubs joined her. 6 small predators standing in a line, protecting 2 confused humans from an imaginary threat. Rule 6 said quietly, "Protect the humans." Felt her heart swell. These bobbies, these tiny predators from a warrior species, were ready to fight for her. They had known her for less than a day, but already she was part of their family. She crawled forward and sat with the cubs, facing the vent. "If there's danger," she said, "we'll face it together." The vent made no more sounds. After a few minutes the cubs relaxed, but they did not move away from it. They stayed close. They stayed ready. Through the radio, Ambassador's voice came. "Human, what are you made of?" Smiled. "The same thing as everyone else, Ambassador. Just a lot of love and a little bit of foolishness. They do not have a word for what you have done. We have words for battle, for honor, for blood debt. But we do not have a word for a stranger who treats our children like her own." "Maybe you'll make one," said. And far away on the other side of the locked doors, Ambassador thought that maybe they would. Hour 14 brought darkness. The emergency power finally failed in Section 7B. The orange lights flickered 3 times and went out. For a moment, there was nothing but black silence. Then the cubs began to growl. Could not see them, but she could hear them. Their growls were low and dangerous, nothing like the playful sounds they had made before. In the darkness, their predator instincts were waking up. Millions of years of evolution were telling them that darkness meant danger, that shadows held enemies, that they needed to hunt or be hunted. Whispered, "Are you there?" "I'm here." His voice came from somewhere to her left. "Don't move. Their eyes are glowing, all of them." Held very still. She could see it now, her own eyes adjusting, 12 points of golden light moving in the darkness. The cubs were circling, packing. Their claws clicked on the floor. "The rules," said. "Do they remember the rules?" "They're scared," said. "Fear is stronger than memory." His glowing eyes came closer. Could hear her breathing, fast and rough. The cub was fighting against her own instincts, but she was losing. What do you do when a predator is about to attack? You cannot run. You cannot fight. You cannot reason with an animal driven by fear. But was not dealing with an animal. She was dealing with a child. And children, she knew, could be calmed with songs. She opened her mouth and began to sing. It was a lullaby, a very old one that her grandmother used to sing when was small and afraid of thunderstorms. The words were in Korean, soft and flowing like water over stones. The melody was simple and gentle, rising and falling like breath. The effect was immediate. Stopped moving, her glowing eyes fixed on his face. Her growl faded into silence. The other cubs stopped too. One by one, their circling slowed. Their eyes turned toward the source of the strange, beautiful sound. Kept singing. She did not know if her voice was good. She did not care. She sang with all her heart, pouring love and safety and warmth into every note. Slowly, carefully crept forward. The smallest cub pressed himself against his leg. His body was shaking, but his growl was gone. He was listening. Then Bora came. Then Saul. Then Dari, and together the twins curling around each other and against side. Finally, the oldest cub, the leader, the one who had fought longest against her fear. She walked to and put her head in his lap. Her eyes closed. A deep, rumbling purr started in her chest. "What is that sound?" Ambassador's voice came through the radio, barely a whisper. "That, singing." "Humans use music to calm their young," explained, his own voice thick with emotion. It's one of our oldest traditions, maybe the oldest. It is beautiful. I have never heard anything like it. Finished the song, but the cubs did not move. They lay around her in a pile of warm fur and steady breathing. The darkness was still there, but it no longer felt dangerous. "Sing more," the ambassador said, "please, for my children." So sang. She sang every lullaby she knew. She sang songs from her childhood, from her school days, from late nights with friends. When she ran out of lullabies, she sang popular songs. When she ran out of words, she hummed. Found a small emergency light in his bag. He turned it on, filling the room with a weak blue glow. In that light, saw the cubs sleeping peacefully around her. Their small chests rose and fell in rhythm with her humming. But not all of them were sleeping. Derry was having a nightmare. His paws twitched, his face twisted. Small whimpers escaped his mouth. He was dreaming of the darkness, of the fear, of things that cubs should not have to dream about. Then he woke up, suddenly, violently, his eyes snapping open, and in that moment of confusion his claws came out. He slashed at the nearest thing. Cried out. 3 lines of red appeared on his arm. The venom hit his system immediately, making him gasp and fall backward. Derry stared at what he had done. He looked at his own claws wet with blood. He looked at its pale face. The other cubs woke. They saw the blood. They saw their sibling frozen in horror. What happened next proved that the rules had truly taken root. Moved first. She walked to Derry and made a low, firm sound. Not angry, correcting. She pushed him gently toward. Bora came next, checking his wound with careful sniffs. She looked at the other cubs and made a sound that even could understand. "We protect the humans." Derry was shaking. Tears ran from his golden eyes. He crawled to on his belly, the position of deepest apology and culture. When he reached the human, he pressed his nose to the wound. In tradition, this meant, "I gave you pain, I take it back. I am sorry with all my blood." Even through the venom's fire, understood. He reached out with his good hand and touched Derry's head. "It's okay," he said. His voice was weak but warm. "You were scared, I understand, I forgive you." Derry collapsed against his side and did not move for a long time. Bandaged his arm with strips from her uniform. The venom was not deadly to humans, but it was painful. His face was white, his jaw tight. "You should rest," said. "I will, but did you see what they did? The cubs, they followed the rules, they taught each other, they apologized, smiled despite everything. They're learning, really learning." Through the radio, Ambassador had heard everything. She had heard her son attack the human. She had heard her other children correct him. She had heard the human forgive him without anger. "When the doors open," she said, and her voice was like nothing had ever heard from a warrior, "I will owe you a debt that my whole clan cannot repay." "You don't owe us anything," said. "We're just taking care of your kids." "That," said the ambassador, "is exactly why we owe you everything." The hours passed. Slept, surrounded by worried cubs who took turns watching over him. Sat awake, keeping guard, singing softly whenever the darkness seemed to grow too heavy. And slowly, slowly the night passed. 4 more hours until the doors would open. 4 more hours of darkness and fear and hope. But they had made it this far. They would make it the rest of the way. Together, the cutting tools screamed against the metal door. Sparks flew in bright orange showers. On the other side, warriors worked with desperate speed. 18 hours had passed. The doors were finally coming down. Inside the ambassador's quarters, sat against the wall. She was exhausted. Her arm hurt from the scratches. Her voice was nearly gone from singing, but she was smiling. Around her, 6 cubs slept in a warm pile. Was on her lap, his small body rising and falling with peaceful breath. Was pressed against her left side, one paw resting on his hand. Bora lay across her feet like a guardian. The twins, Derry and were curled together near. Saul, the shy one who had finally stopped hiding, was tucked under his arm. Was awake now, his bandaged arm cradled against his chest. He watched the door with tired eyes. "They're almost through," he said. "I know." The ambassador said the warriors might come in ready to fight. They don't know what to expect. Looked at the sleeping cubs. They'll see. The metal door glowed red, then orange, then white. With a terrible screech, a section fell inward. Light poured through the gap, bright and harsh after so many hours of darkness. The cubs woke. They blinked at the sudden brightness. Then they heard the sounds, heavy footsteps, deep growls, the clicking of large claws on metal. Warriors coming for them. Expected the cubs to run to their mother. She expected them to forget the humans now that their real family was here. But that is not what happened. Instead stood up. She placed herself between the door and her small body was tense, her golden eyes fixed on the opening. Her siblings moved to join her, forming a line of tiny protectors. The first warrior stepped through the gap. She was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with battle scars across her face and claws the length of knives. She saw the humans on the floor, her lips pulled back from her fangs. And then she saw the cubs. 6 small bodies standing guard over 2 wounded humans. 6 tiny faces staring up at the warriors without fear. 6 sets of golden eyes that said, clearly and without words, "These are ours. You will not hurt them." The smallest cub stepped forward. The one who had been stuck behind the heating unit. The one had freed, getting scratched in the process. The one who had clung to her ever since. He opened his tiny mouth. He showed his milk fangs, barely bigger than grains of rice, and he roared. It was not a scary roar. It was not even a loud roar. It sounded like a kitten trying to be a lion. But the meaning was clear. The meaning stopped every warrior in their tracks. "Rule 6 said quietly, remembering, "Protect the humans." Ambassador pushed through the warriors. She was smaller than the others but moved with authority. Her eyes swept the scene, her cubs, the humans, the bandages, the scratches. Then she did something no human had ever seen her do. She knelt. Not in front of her cubs, in front of the ambassador of one of the most powerful warriors in 12 star systems, knelt before 2 injured humans. "Ara," she said, her voice rang through the silent room. "Blood debt, life debt. My cubs for your cubs, my honor for your honor, my claws for your protection now and forever." The warriors stared. Some of them gasped. Ara was the most sacred oath a could make. It bound not just the speaker but their entire clan, for generations. Ambassador said, trying to sit up, "You don't have to." "I do," raised her head. Her eyes were wet. "You treated my children with kindness when you could have hidden in fear. You fed them, you protected them. You sang them to sleep in the darkness. You bled for them and forgave them." She shook her head. "We have no word for what you did, but we will make one, I promise you that." The cubs ran to their mother then, finally breaking their guard. They climbed over her, purring and crying at the same time, held them tight, all 6 of them breathing in their scent. But she kept looking at, and saw something in those golden eyes that she would never forget, a warrior's respect, a mother's gratitude, and the beginning of a friendship between species. Medical teams came through next, checking and for venom damage. The scratches would heal. The memories would stay forever. Az was helped to her feet, pulled away from her mother. The oldest cub walked back to and pressed her nose against his hand. "She wants you to come visit," said. "They all do. They're already asking if you can be there." There's no human word. Something between aunt and guardian and second mother. Smiled through her tears. "Tell them I'd love that." The days that followed were busy. Reports had to be written. Diplomats had to meet. The story of the lockdown spread through the station, then to other stations, then to other worlds. The warriors that everyone feared, had sworn eternal protection to 2 humans. A maintenance engineer and a translator. Nobody special. Just people who chose kindness over fear. But the best part came later. 5 years later, on the She stood on a wide plain of purple grass, watching the twin suns set. Behind her, a traditional house rose against the orange sky. Her house, given to her by the clan, her home. 6 shapes came running toward her across the grass. They were no longer cubs. They were adolescents now, each one taller than her. Stood over 2 meters high, a young warrior in training. Had grown into a scholar curious about everything. Bora had joined the guard, protecting their home. The twins were always together, always getting into trouble. Saul was still shy, still soft, still her favorite pillow. They crashed into her like a wave of fur and love. Mother's voice was deep now but still eager. You came back. I always come back. Sing us the song, said Saul quietly, the one from the darkness. Laughed, every visit the same request, and every visit she was happy to give it. They sat together on the grass, watching the suns go down. 6 massive predators and 1 small human pressed close together, sharing warmth. And sang. She sang the lullaby her grandmother had taught her. The same song that had calmed terrified cubs in a dark room. The same song that had bridged 2 species. The same song that had proven, once again, that kindness was stronger than claws. The cubs joined in. Their deep voices rumbled over the plain, following the melody as best they could, getting the words hilariously wrong. It sounded terrible. It sounded beautiful. Somewhere in the universe, wars were being fought. Empires were rising and falling. Great events were shaking the stars. But here on this quiet plain, there was only a song and a family. And that thought was enough. That was everything. The rules the cubs had learned still held. They taught them to their own children and their children's children. Throughout the worlds, the phrase, gentle mouths only, became a proverb, a reminder that strength was nothing without kindness, that the fiercest warriors could still be gentle, that protection given freely was the highest form of honor. And it all started with 2 humans who refused to hide from crying bobbies. The floor vents had echoed with roars. The cubs had drafted rules for treating humans kindly. And the universe was a little bit better for it.